Picture this scene for just one moment. A man is standing on the side of a dark highway with his hands pressed against his own car while two police officers search through his belongings like he is some kind of dangerous criminal. His only crime was a broken taillight. He has no warrants. He has no weapons. He has nothing to hide. But for the past 45 minutes, these officers have made him feel like he does not belong in his own country. They have questioned his employment, doubted his ownership of his vehicle, and made snide comments about his expensive watch. He is humiliated, exhausted, and wondering if tonight is the night something terrible happens to him. And then, headlights appear in the distance. Another vehicle pulls up behind the patrol cars. The door opens, and a figure steps out into the flashing red and blue lights. The two officers freeze. Their smug expressions vanish. Their voices go quiet, because the man walking toward them is wearing a badge, a uniform, and the unmistakable authority of someone who outranks them both. He is also the brother of the man they have been harassing for the last hour. What happens next is something these officers will never forget. This is a story about family, about injustice, about the badge that divides and the blood that unites. And by the end of this video, you will see exactly why this moment became one of the most talked about police encounters of the decade. Marcus Williams was driving home from his job as a financial analyst in downtown Atlanta on a Thursday evening in late October. He had worked a 12-hour day, closing a major acquisition for his firm, and he was exhausted in the best possible way, the kind of tired that comes from accomplishment. He was thinking about the celebratory dinner he would cook for his wife and their two young daughters when he noticed the blue lights in his rearview mirror. He was not speeding. He had not run any stop signs. He was not weaving between lanes. He had no idea why he was being pulled over, but like so many black men in America, he knew exactly how this interaction needed to go. He signaled, slowed down, and pulled into a well-lit gas station parking lot, because he had been taught since childhood that visibility was safety. He rolled down his window, placed his hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, and waited. When the officer approached his window, Marcus spoke first with a calm and respectful voice. He said, "Good evening, officer. How can I help you?" The officer, whose badge read Johnson, did not return the greeting. Instead, he shined his flashlight directly into Marcus's face and asked him if he knew why he had been stopped. Marcus said he did not. Officer Johnson informed him that his rear tail light was out and asked for license and registration. Marcus complied immediately, explaining each movement before he made it just as his father had taught him. He told the officer he was reaching into his glove compartment for the registration and then into his jacket pocket for his wallet. Everything was exactly where it should be. His license was valid. His registration was current. His insurance was paid in full. This should have been a 5-minute interaction at most. A warning, perhaps a fix-it ticket, and Marcus would have been on his way home to his family. But that is not what happened. Officer Johnson took the documents back to his patrol car and stayed there for what felt like an eternity. When he returned, he was accompanied by a second officer, Officer Martinez, and their demeanor had shifted entirely. They asked Marcus to step out of the vehicle. When he asked why, they said they had detected the smell of marijuana coming from inside the car. Marcus knew this was a lie. He had never used marijuana in his entire life. He was a church deacon. He coached his daughter's basketball team. He had never even received a speeding ticket. But he also knew that arguing would only make things worse, so he stepped out of the car as instructed. What followed was an hour of systematic humiliation. They searched his vehicle without his consent, dumping the contents of his laptop bag onto the asphalt and rifling through his gym clothes like they were looking for contraband. They asked him where he really got the money for such a nice car, a late-model Mercedes that he had purchased with cash from 3 years of bonuses. They questioned whether the watch on his wrist was real or stolen. They made him recite his home address, his employer's name, and his wife's phone number, as if any answer he gave might be a lie. Marcus remained calm through all of it, even as his heart pounded and his hands trembled. He had 2 daughters at home who needed their father to walk through the front door tonight. He had a wife who would worry if he was even 10 minutes late. He had everything to live for and nothing to prove to these 2 officers who had already decided what kind of man he was. And then his phone rang inside the car. The officers had left it sitting on the front seat during their search. Marcus asked if he could answer it, because it might be his wife. Officer Johnson picked up the phone, looked at the screen, and laughed. He said the caller ID said it was someone named Darnell and asked if that was his dealer. Marcus felt something break inside him at that moment, some last thread of patience and grace that he had been holding onto for the entire interaction. Because Darnell was not a dealer. Darnell was his older brother, and Darnell was also the captain of the Fulton County Police Department. Darnell Williams had been trying to reach his younger brother for over an hour. They had dinner plans that evening, a rare chance for the two of them to spend time together without the demands of work and family. When Marcus did not answer his first 3 calls, Darnell assumed he was stuck in traffic or running late from the office. But by the 5th unanswered call, Darnell felt something twist in his gut. He knew his brother. Marcus always answered. Always. So Darnell did what any law enforcement officer would do when worried about a family member. He ran a quick check through the system and discovered that Marcus's vehicle had been flagged in a traffic stop on Interstate 285 nearly 45 minutes ago. 45 minutes for a traffic stop was not normal. That was an investigation. That was a search. That was the kind of interaction that ended up on the news for all the wrong reasons. Darnell grabbed his uniform jacket and headed out the door. When he arrived at the scene, what he saw made his blood run cold. His baby brother, a man with a master's degree and a 6-figure salary, was standing with his hands pressed against the trunk of his own car while 2 officers went through his belongings. The contents of his briefcase were scattered across the ground. His suit jacket was crumpled on the hood, and the expression on Marcus's face was one that Darnell had seen too many times before during his 22 years in law enforcement. It was the look of a man who was trying very hard not to become a statistic. Darnell parked his vehicle and stepped out in full uniform. He walked slowly and deliberately toward the scene, his badge catching the light of the patrol car strobes. Officer Johnson noticed him first and straightened up immediately. Officer Martinez stepped back from the vehicle entirely. Darnell did not yell. He did not threaten. He simply asked in a voice as cold as winter steel what exactly was going on here. The 2 officers stumbled over each other, trying to explain. They mentioned the broken taillight. They mentioned the alleged smell of marijuana. They mentioned their concerns about the value of the vehicle and the driver's inability to explain his employment to their satisfaction. Darnell listened to every word without interrupting, and then he asked a single question that made both officers go pale. He asked them if they had obtained consent for the search, or if they had established probable cause beyond an alleged odor that his brother, who had never touched a drug in his life, somehow produced from a vehicle that was now clearly empty of any contraband whatsoever. The silence that followed was deafening. Officer Johnson tried to speak, but found no words. Officer Martinez suddenly became very interested in a spot on the ground near his feet. Darnell walked over to his brother, looked him in the eye, and told him he was sorry. Not sorry for what the officers had done, though that apology would come later in different forms. Sorry that this was still happening in their country in the year of our Lord. Sorry that despite everything they had both achieved, despite the badges and the degrees and the decades of service, Marcus could still be treated like a suspect in his own life. Darnell helped his brother gather his belongings from the ground. He picked up the laptop that had been tossed carelessly onto the asphalt. He folded the suit jacket that their mother had bought Marcus for his promotion. And then he turned back to the 2 officers and told them exactly what was going to happen next. He informed them that there would be an internal investigation. He told them that body camera footage would be reviewed by the department, the Civilian Oversight Board, and possibly the media. He made it clear that if they were found to have violated protocol, their careers would be measured in weeks rather than years. But more importantly, he told them something that neither officer expected to hear. He told them that he forgave them, not because what they had done was acceptable, not because they deserved forgiveness, but because holding on to anger would only poison him and his brother both. He said that his brother had a family to get home to, and that this stop had already stolen enough time from a good man. The 2 officers stood in stunned silence as the Williams brothers gathered the last of Marcus's belongings and prepared to leave. Before they drove away in separate vehicles, Darnell turned to Officer Johnson one final time. He told him that the difference between a good cop and a bad cop was not the uniform or the badge or the training. It was the willingness to see every person as a human being first and a suspect second. He said that tonight these officers had failed that test, but tomorrow was a new day. Then he got in his car and followed his brother home. The internal investigation that followed confirmed what the Williams brothers already knew. There was no probable cause for the search. The alleged marijuana smell was never documented in any official report. Body camera footage showed Officer Johnson making several comments that violated department policy regarding professional conduct. Both officers received formal reprimands that would remain in their personnel files permanently. Officer Martinez, who was still in his probationary period, was given additional mandatory training on implicit bias and constitutional search requirements. Officer Johnson, who had been on the force for 11 years, was suspended without pay for 2 weeks and assigned to desk duty for 6 months afterward. But the real story did not end with disciplinary action. It ended with transformation. Marcus Williams had every right to pursue a lawsuit. He had every right to go public with body camera footage that would have ended careers and sparked outrage. He had every right to demand accountability in the loudest possible terms. Instead, he chose a different path. Working with his brother, Marcus helped develop a new training curriculum for the Fulton County Police Department focused on procedural justice and community trust. He spoke at the police academy about his experience, not with anger, but with honesty. He told young officers that the badge they were about to wear carried a weight that most people could never understand. He told them that every traffic stop was a chance to build trust or destroy it. He told them that the man in the Mercedes with the broken taillight was someone's son, someone's husband, someone's father, and someone's brother. And he told them that he still believed in good policing despite everything that had happened to him that night on Interstate 285. Officer Johnson, for his part, experienced something he did not expect during his suspension. He experienced shame, not the kind that comes from getting caught, but the genuine kind that comes from realizing you have become exactly the kind of cop you swore you would never be. He reached out to Marcus 3 months after the incident and asked if they could meet for coffee. Marcus agreed. That meeting lasted 4 hours. By the end of it, Officer Johnson was crying, and Marcus was offering him grace that few people in his position would have been capable of giving. Johnson returned to active duty a changed man. His colleagues noticed. His supervisors noticed. The community noticed. He became one of the department's most requested officers for community outreach events. He volunteered for school programs and neighborhood meetings. He never forgot the night he learned that his assumptions could destroy a man's dignity in less than an hour, and that it took far longer to rebuild the trust he had broken. The Williams brothers still have dinner together every Thursday when their schedules allow. They still argue about sports and politics and whose children are more talented. They still carry the weight of being black men in America who happen to work on different sides of the same system. But they also carry something else now, a story that has been shared in training rooms and community centers and church basements across the country. A story about what happens when power meets humanity. A story about what happens when family shows up when you need them most. A story about forgiveness that does not excuse behavior, but refuses to let that behavior define the future. Here is what I want you to take away from this video. The badge is just metal. The uniform is just fabric. The car with the flashing lights is just a machine. What makes law enforcement work, what makes any community work, is the human being inside all of that equipment. Every single day, officers make choices that can either heal or harm, that can build bridges or burn them. And every single day, citizens make choices about whether to see officers as enemies or as neighbors who happen to wear a different uniform. Marcus Williams could have become bitter. He could have spent the rest of his life telling a story of victimhood. Instead, he became a bridge builder. Officer Johnson could have become defensive, could have blamed the system, could have doubled down on the biases that got him into trouble. Instead, he became living proof that people can change when they are given the chance. And Captain Darnell Williams could have used his authority to destroy 2 careers in a single night. Instead, he used it to demand better from officers who still had time to become the cops their communities needed them to be. If this story moved you, If it made you think about the complexity of justice and the power of family and the possibility of redemption, then I'm asking you to do something simple. Like this video so more people can find it. Leave a comment sharing your own thoughts about how we can bridge the divide between communities and the officers who serve them. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that grace is still possible even after injustice. And subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story that reminds us what we are capable of when we lead with humanity instead of fear. Because here is the truth that too many people forget. We are all wearing badges of some kind. We are all representing something larger than ourselves. The question is not whether we have power. The question is what we do with it when no one is watching. What we do when the cameras are off. What we do when it would be easy to look the other way. Marcus and Darnell Williams answered that question with grace. Officer Johnson eventually answered it with growth. Now it is your turn. What kind of badge are you wearing today?